Wondering whether you should do a long-term rental or an Airbnb on your investment property? This video is for you. There's pros and cons to both. Let's go over the pros and cons of each. Airbnbs technically will generate a higher income when compared to long-term rentals. With Airbnbs, you would have an ability to use your investment property for your own self-use every now and then. You would have a much more diversified risk with your Airbnb. You don't run into the risk of long-term bad tenants or inaffordability on the part of tenants that they cannot pay for longer periods of time, as you will have a plethora of tenants compared to a few tenants. Cons of an Airbnb. Well, let's start with the first one. There's definitely a lot more management compared to a long-term rental. You would need to provide daily cleaning. You would need to furnish your property. It's harder to refinance an Airbnb because you cannot prove a daily income. Also, you have to adhere to the local laws and taxes. Not only do you have to worry about what the legislations of your city are, but let's say if you're buying an Airbnb in downtown Calgary, you have to also worry about the condo board requirements or whether they would allow a short-term rental or not. Now let's talk about the pros of long-term rentals. There's significantly less management in a long-term rental. Once the property is rented out, you are good to go. You are supposed to provide the space typically unfinished and unfurnished. Your income is much more predictable. Airbnbs can have a high occupancy or a low occupancy rate, but that doesn't bother you if you have a long-term rental. You get a fixed amount of money every month and it's easier to plan your cash flow. The cons of a long-term rental: evictions. Evicting a tenant can be very tough. It's a legal matter and you have to proceed with all the legal proceedings in order to kick out even a very bad tenant. You cannot use your own long-term rental. If the place is rented out on a long-term rental basis, you most likely would not be able to enter that premises without proper reasoning or proper notice, and definitely not to stay yourself. While most Airbnbs would generate 1.5 to 2.5 times revenue compared to a long-term rental, there's plenty of other expenses to keep in mind. You have to pay for daily cleaning for your Airbnb. You most likely need to have a property manager that manages your Airbnb rental unless you're planning to do it yourself on a full-time basis, which can be pretty time consuming. Airbnb would also be taking a cut of your daily earnings. State taxes. For a short-term rental, you're more likely to pay higher taxes compared to a long-term rental. Does it make sense for you to turn your investment property into an Airbnb or a long-term rental? Send me a DM today and let's walk through it.